Hey PJs, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to play with slime and like some of the basics. And before you leave, because I feel like a lot of people leave when they see my sink, and no, my sink is not dirty, it is stained. We got it stained like when we bought the house. It was here obviously and it was stained. Anyways, I'll get into more logistics when I actually get to my table, but the first thing you're going to want to do is wash your hands with some warm water and soap. Be sure to lather up and all that good stuff. And then of course dry them off, and you can dry them off with your decorated towel if you'd like, but I prefer to dry them off with a paper towel. I've noticed if I do just like a regular towel or whatever, it leaves microfiber sometimes, which is normal. I'm just very particular about my slimes. Once you're done with that, you're going to want to clean off your working surface, whatever you're going to be playing on. Obviously, if you're playing like on your couch, watch TV, whatever, you don't have to clean your couch. Hopefully. But I just like to clean mine off with like a Clorox wipe. You could also do just a wet paper towel. That also works. Whatever works for you, whatever you feel like doing. And then I would always keep some type of activator or deactivator on hand. This is my activator. I like to keep it in a squeeze bottle. You can use whatever activator works for you, whatever deactivator works for you. I just like to keep mine on hand because things can get messy if you have a slime that is either underactivated or overactivated. So like mentioned, I'm just going to go over what basics I think are like slime playing basics. But the very first thing that I want to mention to you guys is there's really no wrong way to play with slime. As long as you're caring for it and you play with it however makes you happy, just do it. I know that a lot of people will be like, oh, your one finger pokes or like the way you stretch it triggers me. Like, just don't listen. Just do it however you feel like. We're all going to get triggered about random things. Just whatever works for you, do it. And as you probably saw, this first section is poking. I like to poke thick and glossy slimes. As you can hear it, it kind of gives off those thick, like thwocks is what people call them. And really, just to get finger pokes in slime, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just poke your fingers into slime, you just put your fingers on it and put pressure on it, and it will create noises. So as you can see, I'm even doing one finger pokes to just show you that you could just do whatever. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 finger pokes, whatever you'd like to do. And I was really trying not to crunch this because I want to crunch it, I want to like play with it, but I'm showing you guys that you can like poke it, whatever. There's also other textures that you can poke slimes. Like, you could really poke whatever slime you want. I'm just kind of showing the more popular ones. This is a clear based slime. It's actually a coated clear, so the pokes that you hear are more thin and watery, but obviously different textures are going to create different pokes, so whatever pokes sound the best to you. I like poking slimes, but not nearly as much as like other different like categories of playing with slime. But there's people, obviously maybe some of you guys, that really like pokes. They're super simple to do and kind of fun, but pretty basic, I guess. I don't know. While you're poking your slime, especially thicker slimes, you're going to notice that these air bubbles and air pockets are starting to form. That's how you create bubble pops. You can really create them in almost any way by poking the slime, folding it over like you just saw, or stretching it out and inflating it, which I'll get into inflation later. But you can really, they're pretty simple to create, and the thicker the slime, the louder the bubble pops are going to be. And I always like to warn people, if you're playing with an extremely thick slime, if you create bubble pops, sometimes slime will fling. I don't really know what causes it. I wish I knew, but it does happen. I have gotten it in my eye, in my hair, on my lights, on the floor. Just do be careful, but they're actually pretty fun to do. Especially when they get like so loud that you can't even hear your own thoughts anymore, because it does happen. And again, like here I'm showing the coated clear slime. Like I mentioned with the pokes, it's going to sound a lot more watery, and the air pockets are going to be a lot smaller because the slime just can't like hold on to small or big pockets of air when it's a runnier base. It's just going to kind of like sink in and like destroy the pockets of air. It's hard to explain, but they're smaller, but I like them more than the thick ones because they get everywhere. Although they are harder to accomplish, you can also create bubble pops with clay-based slimes like I'm doing here. They're a lot less loud and more subtle, but still they can be done. You can really do bubble pops with almost any type of slime, and you can play with slime, any slime, however you feel like. I'm just kind of doing the popular choices for different ways to play with slime, if that makes sense. While you're trying to create those bubble pops, you're more than likely going to stretch your slime out. And while it can be self-explanatory, I also wanted to show you guys the two main ways of stretching out slime, or at least the two ways that I like to stretch out slime. And that might be self-explanatory, but I know when I first started watching slime reviews and things like that, I was like, why are you stretching it different than this other person? What's the difference? So I had to go experiment and stuff, because really no one even told me what the difference was. So I'm going to show you guys. So the first stretch is this thinner one where your fingers are kind of conjoined together in separate sections of the slime. You just fold the slime over and then stretch it back out, and it's pretty simple like this. It creates that really thin rope-like look to it. It's also the way that I like to make slime swirls, which I'll show it again kind of slower if you don't know how to make a slime swirl. And it's also how I like to inflate slime. I just think that it creates a faster inflation, so it's just easier that way. The second way that I like to stretch out slime is by flattening my thumbs, as you can see here, to create a much wider pull on the slime. You guys probably see this one a lot more when I'm reviewing, at least, because I think it just looks better on screen. You can see more of the slime, and if there's any add-ins, it's a better chance to be able to see them. It also creates much louder bubble pops. As you saw with the first stretch, I just kind of pulled it and there was little bubble pops. This creates bigger bubble pops, and I just find it better when you're just trying to stretch it and not exactly inflation and just trying to make a lot of noises. I've mentioned it multiple times now, so of course I'm going to show you guys the inflation on a slime. It's really almost inevitable if you're playing with slime. Inflation is going to happen, and really what happens is as you're playing with slime, you're going to constantly trap air in the slime, and even if you crunch it, there's still going to be those tiny little micro bubbles that you can't see, but you just know they're there because the slime's getting bigger as you're playing with it. The rule of thumb is usually 2 to 5 minutes of stretching a slime to get it to its full inflation, and you'll know it's there when the slime starts ripping really easily. That's when you know that there's typically more air than slime that you're playing with at the moment, which is kind of weird. You'll also kind of realize at some point that there's going to be some residue depending on the slime, unless it's a perfectly coated slime, whatever. Some residue is going to happen, and I'm the type of person that doesn't like it on my hands. I talk about it in reviews all the time, but this is completely different. It comes off right away, and it really just happens because you're kind of holding the slime for a very long period of time as you're trying to inflate it. So it's just going to kind of stick, but it comes right off. It's very normal. I would say the most typical slime texture you're going to inflate with is a clay-based slime. Something to do with the clay just makes it a lot easier to inflate, but there are also multiple different textures to do. This one is actually a combination of clay, jelly, and crunchy slime, so it creates the ultimate inflating queen. This one, even as I'm talking, I haven't cut anything, but you can see it turn from a dark orange to a very light orange. It's got a ton of crunches, bubble pops, and of course it inflates a lot. So this one is probably my favorite type to inflate, but clay slimes are really fun to inflate too because they're just so soft and they become so pillowy. Another slime texture that I personally like to inflate are icy slimes. I just like, again, how soft and pillowy and sizzly that they get. Also, if it's a wet-based slime, it becomes a lot less wet, not exactly dry, but not as wet as it was, which I'm a dry icy fan, so that's really nice. And I will be covering it in the next section, but when you inflate icy slimes, they become super sizzly, and that sound is just really satisfying. And here we are in the sizzles section. Sizzles typically happen when you inflate a slime, and instead of crunching it like I have been in the rest of the video, you just flatten it. Now, it can differ between textures, but I would say most of the time you really can't achieve sizzles or true sizzles unless it has a high snow ratio in it, and I'm not really sure what it is. It could be something to do with how most slimes that have the snow in it has water in it, and that just creates the sizzles with the glue. I don't really know the science behind it exactly, but that's typically you're gonna have to play with like an icy slime or a cloud slime. If you drizzle it and you listen very closely, it will create some sizzles. You can also sometimes get them out of clay slimes depending on how much it does inflate, because the air can become so like, I don't even know, I know potent isn't the word, but it can become so like there in the slime that it does create a sizzle like sound. Hopefully this video is helping you guys figure out what kind of texture you think you might like, and if you think that you might like sizzles and don't mind like the wet residue type, I would definitely recommend wet ices. They create really loud sizzles. Usually sizzles are very quiet, but with a wet icy, there's no escaping the sound. It's very, very loud. And with that, that is the end of this video, and I really hope you guys enjoyed. I also really hope that this video helped you, whether it helped you find what kind of texture you think you might like, or how to play with slime, because I know some of you guys have said in my comments that you're just completely lost and haven't purchased slime because you just don't know how to play with slime, so I do really hope this helped. I didn't give it its own section, but if you're the type that likes to just hold the slime or maybe fold it over in your hands while watching TV, whatever you feel like, holding the slime is also another great way to play with slime. I've been playing with slime for almost 4 years now, so there's a lot of things that I just don't think of for people that have just never played with slime before, so if I missed anything, please do let me know down below. I am free to answer any questions. Now I am signing off, and I will see you guys in the next one.